Hello, welcome. It's been a long time since I've made a video. This one won't be a tutorial like I've done in the past. Instead, I'm thinking this one will be more of a raw devlog style. My plan is to create some sort of character customizer in Unreal Engine. I've had one go at it already, and a few people have asked if I could share that with them. Unfortunately, I can't, primarily due to Daz licensing. So what I thought I'd do is start from scratch, basically, and record the whole process, probably across several parts. It'll be, as I say, very raw. You'll see all the mistakes I make and hopefully how I go about fixing them. Certainly when it comes to the Unreal side of things, I am not an expert. There'll be a lot of figuring things out as I go. But hopefully you'll find that whole process useful as well. So I'm not used to recording videos, and I hate talking. I'm usually a quiet person, talking to no one when there's no one in front of me. So that will take some getting used to, so bear with me. If I go quiet, it's probably because I'm thinking, concentrating. I will try and explain what's going through my head, what we're doing as I go. So we're going to start in Daz. I'm going to be using Daz Genesis 9 figure as the base figure type. As far as I'm aware, it's the first of the Daz figure types that has both male and female, coming off the one base geometry. So I think when it comes to things like a character customizer, that makes perfect sense to me to use that. So I'm going to start by loading up just the base Genesis 9 figure. A bit of a coughing attack, hopefully you didn't hear that. Alright, I'm going to delete all of the hair assets for now, so eyebrows and eyelashes. We'll worry about hair somewhere down the line. Before I forget, because I always forget, I'm going to change the UV set of the T-line geometry to the UE5 set. And I'm going to save it before I go anywhere else. I'm just going to save over what I've done the last time I did it. So we have our base Genesis 9 geometry, and I'm not going to bake any character shapes into this base. I'm going to keep it as the raw Genesis 9 geometry. It's this sort of halfway between male and female shape. As I say, I think that's a good starting point for a character customizer. What I do want to do is add some, well, as much anatomical correctness to this base figure as I can. I won't be adding genitalia because obviously I want this to go up on YouTube and don't want to have to worry about all that. But hopefully I can get away with nipples without YouTube attack dogs getting me. So let's slow those on. Shit, I can't show those on YouTube. So I have these geographs for nipples and navel. What I will do is zero those out though, so that we are starting with a blank slate, so that everything that's changed on this character is done by the end user in the character customizer. So I'm going to zero these out as our starting point. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is load my Genesis 9 ROM with the faceboard. This will give us all of our joint corrective morphs, our facial morphs, as a starting point. Thinking. And load the mouth as well. Alright, so we have our base ROM. So what I'm going to do is add another frame to this. Zoom in on the timeline. So on this next frame, I want to remove the last of the facial morphs, so I can find out what that is if I go to the base figure, look at currently used. It's something to do with the chin, yeah, this neck under chin flex. I'm going to zero that out. So now back to the character's base rest pose, I guess. Now I want to have some sort of jiggle physics on this character as well. So I have this jiggle ROM that I made last time I went through this process. It uses some custom morphs that I created in Houdini and brought into Daz. I will share this in the next release of DazToHue. So I'm going to load that onto this last frame. And if I keep looking at currently used, see it starts with this breast out pose. So I want to go back to the previous frame, zero that out. So now we have our breast, glute and stomach physics morphs. Now they obviously don't look good on this base character, but they will look alright when certain other morphs are applied, such as the heavy morph, which we'll get to next. So I'm going to add a few more frames to the timeline. I'm not sure how many I'm going to need yet. Let's go with that. Now this will be a process that I come back to probably a few times over various parts of this series. I'm only going to add a few full body morphs for now. So say we will come back and add more as we need them down the track. So on this next blank frame, I want to zero out this stomach physics morph. So we're now back again to the base figure. And now we can just start working on what will essentially all be full body morphs as far as DazToHue is concerned. So I think the first ones I'll add are the base feminine and masculine morphs. Search for base fem. I have this base feminine morph, so we'll add that. And again, making sure it's only applied to that single frame. We'll do the same for masculine. Now what else can we add? If I go to full body, these are quite useful to add as well, some of them anyway. So let's do an emaciated morph. Let's do fitness. Also add muscular. We'll do fitness. Definitely going to do heavy. Do muscular as well. Oops. Do older. some sort of some sort of, I guess, younger morph as well. I just scale it down for that. So we have a maybe -50. What else would be good? I mean, eventually we'll have to add heaps of these for, I think, the various parts of the body. Things like breast size and different head shapes and whatnot. But I think for now I might leave it at that. The one other thing I do want to add is if the character is in a heavy pose and the arms are down by the side, it will clip through the side of the character. So I'm going to add another pose with just the arms raised up a bit. To something like, we'll do more than we need because we can tweak it in Unreal Engine. Alright, so we might call it there for our starting ROM. As I say, we will come back and add to this, I'm sure, down the track, but that'll do for now. You can see we have some drifting. What I want to do now is make sure all of our keyframes are set to linear. That should fix that. So now not getting any more drifting now. We'll save that. Now I'm going to export. Just make sure we're on sub D level 1, which we are. I'll export the FBX. We'll do the same for Lambic. Right. Sorry, I'm a coughing fit. Let's gather those files together. I'm going to call this prototype. It will be, as I say, the base starting point for the character creator. So we'll copy our FBX files over, or move them rather. Same for our Lambic cache. Get rid of all those. Now, before I leave Daz, we have one full body morph that alters the skeleton. It's obviously this proportional height one, so we are going to need to export that separately as a reference skeleton. I don't think any of these others do alter the skeleton scales, which is the main thing. do. Very slight changes in some of these. So we might actually have to end up exporting reference skeletons for some of these others as well. All right. Yeah, I might do the two. It's hard to tell if that's. Looks like the base feminine and masculine also alter the skeleton slightly, so we'll do those as well. So with the base feminine, we're on the base feminine frame, so I'm going to memorize that. Go to frame 1, restore it. Storing takes forever, I don't know why. I swear DazToHue is getting slower and slower. Actually, given that's the only thing we changed, probably could have just added it to frame 0. Anyway, that's applied, so I'm now going to send that just as a skeletal mesh, not an animation. I'll export that. I really like to make my own DTH plugin for Daz. It's one of the problems with the DazToHue one is it will just overwrite whatever you've exported previously. So this file here is now our base feminine skeleton. Don't need any of that other stuff. And actually, rather than doing the memorize restore, what I'll do is remove base feminine. Just add base masculine and export that. So this will be base masculine. I think the last one I need is that proportional height, so we'll memorize that. Restore it to frame 0. Oops. Try that again. Export that. Alright, I think that's all we need as far as files to start with. Just going to close Daz for now, I guess. Now we can jump into Houdini. Okay, so here we are in Houdini. I'm going to drop down a DazToHue node, dive into it, give it a name, prototype, browse to the files we just exported. Oops. Now, because the navel and nipples were geographs, we have to just do a little bit of cleaning up excuse me, of the Lambic. So we'll add a Lambic cleansing operation, delete isolated points, and then from delete from Alembic, going to delete the duplicate geoshell geometry. So we now have a match, which is good. While I'm here, I'm going to delete the left and right eye geometry because we don't need that. Move on to the skin node. Because we don't have any clothing, I only need a single shape, and everything will belong to this body shape. Rather than selecting all these at once, you can just add in name equals asterisk. That will grab them all. So we now have a single body shape. Just a little Houdini trick, I suppose. Onto the skeleton node. Now, sources Genesis 9. The target, I was in two minds about whether I wanted to use UE5 mannequin or the DTH native skeleton. The project I have in mind isn't the sort of running around third person project. So I actually don't think I need the UE5 mannequin skeleton. So I'm going to use the DTH native skeleton, but I think the process will be more or less the same if you were using the UE5 mannequin skeleton. There'd be a little bit of retargeting changes you'd need to do on the skeleton in Unreal Engine, which is covered in the quick start guide if you are using UE5 skeleton. But for my project, I'm going to use the native skeleton. Because I want some jiggle physics, I'm going to add the physics helper bones. I might actually just align them, at least the breast bones, a little better. I guess another little Houdini tip, you can actually middle mouse click on a lot of these input boxes and you'll get this menu where you can, with moving the mouse up and down, you can, and then left and right, you can make very fine adjustments to the values. Actually, I think it's a really good system that I think other applications could benefit from. That looks pretty good. I think the stomach's alright. I think I'll just leave the glute bones where they are as well. Another quick tip, if you hover over the viewport and press the F key, it will frame up your object. So I think that's all I need to do on the skeleton node. A fair bit to do on the materials node, so I am going for, I guess, maximum realism. So I want to make the eyes look really good. So I will use the Unreal Engine eye shader. So I select the eye moisture geometry for the eyeballs, and I want to make sure this crosshair is lining up nicely. Looks pretty good. I also want the eye occlusion geometry. I do need to rotate the left side. So we've got inner, outer, upper and lower. Right side's already good. Excuse me, another coughing fit. Let's auto-populate materials. Now I do want to optimize this as much as I can from the start, so I'm going to try and reduce the number of materials that we'll ultimately need. That will mean creating some texture atlases somewhere along the line, but we can go through that. So I'm going to merge fingernails with toenails. Oops, did I screw that up? Sorry, I'm going to merge toenails with fingernails. Just call it nails. The mouth cavity goes with the head. These body 2 and body 1 are the geographs, so they're all going to have the same body material. So I'm just going to merge those with body. Right eye I'll merge with the left eye. Just call it eyes. Teeth with the mouth. I'm going to reorder things. I'm going to move the eye occlusion material, the tear line and the eyes to the top of the stack. I'm actually going to make the eye occlusion material first and then the tear material next. I have found that this order does matter, although I haven't thoroughly tested it, but I did notice that if the order was reversed and the tear line wasn't being rendered properly in Unreal Engine, because both of these are translucent materials, I think it's a sorting issue when rendering in Unreal Engine, but by having them in this order it seemed to fix it. Have the eyes next. I'm going to move the head up. This isn't strictly necessary, but it's just my OCD-ness, I think. I'm going to make a texture atlas out of the body, arms and legs. So I'm going to merge the arms with the body and the legs with the body. Move that next. Mouth and nails. So I think that'll be our final set of material slots for our character customizer in Unreal Engine. So we have these materials. Onto UVs. Let's bring up the UV view. Let's isolate the body. Now I need to make a texture atlas out of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is move them all to the first UDIM tile. I'm going to add a pack 2x2. Top left will be my body and also my geographs. Top right I'll have my arms, and top left, bottom left will be the legs. So we do have this spare slot which I would typically use for genitalia textures, but we don't have any, so I'll leave it blank for now. So for now, unisolate everything. We have everything packed into the first UDIM, which is the way I want it. Get rid of the UV viewport, and that's all we need to do for the materials. I don't need to worry about any of these nodes for now. We don't have clothing, so there's no occlusion issues at the moment, or cloth needs. I don't want to perform any mesh operations on this at the moment. Somewhere down the line we will probably come back and add LEDs for our character, but for now we'll leave it. So moving on to the pose asset node. I have a preset from the last time I did this exercise, which will get me up to the point where all the physics morphs are mapped. So I'm going to load that as the starting point. Now our physics morph should start at frame 617. So if we go to that frame, it should be the left breast out morph, which it is. So yeah, it's not difficult to set up the physics morphs. I do have a video where I go through the process, but it is a little slow and tedious, so thankfully I can use this one I prepared earlier. So we now just have to map our full body morphs to the end of our physics morphs was frame 658. So if we go to frame 659, that should be our first full body morph, which it is. That's our feminine, base feminine morph. So we can now start to map those. So we'll just call this one feminine. Next one will be masculine. Then I think we had this emaciated one. I'm just going to call it thin. We had, this was fitness, I think it was. I'll just call it fit. I don't know whether I want both fit and muscly, but we have them, so we'll add them for now. This one was heavy. This was the muscly one. This was the older one. This was our height one, I'll just call it short. And this was our arms raised one, which we'll use in conjunction with the heavy morph later on, so I'll call it arms raised. Is that a good one? I'll call it arm offset. So we need to add the frame numbers. I forgot what physics ended on frame 658. So we can reframe our full body morphs starting from 659. And with any luck, we should end on frame 667. Okay. Yeah, 667, which is the last frame in our timeline. Just going to save that before I go any further. Give it an export directory. Now, I actually just thought of something else I want for this project before I export everything out of Houdini. So I'm actually going to go back into DazToHue. What I want is some sort of idle animation. I don't just want our character, or I don't just want the character in our character creator screen to just stand there in a pose. I want it to be animated, doing something slightly more interesting. So I'm going to use a Daz animation for that. And I think the one I want to use is actually for Genesis 8.1. So I'm going to load up Genesis 8.1 basic male. We only care about the animation, so I'm going to make the geometry as simple as I can, space res. And I think from memory I've certainly got more animations for 8.1 than I do for Genesis 9. Yeah, these ones here worked quite well. So I'm going to use those. Before I do that, I want to add just the retargeting poses to this character, because we're going to need to retarget from Genesis 8.1 to Genesis 9. So I'm going to load the retargeting poses onto this character. On the next blank frame, I'm just going to zero it out. I don't know why that resets my body subdivision level, but it did. Alright, so starting on this frame, I'm going to load those animations on. This is a good animation set for Daz. The animations in Daz are usually pretty crap, but this one's not too bad, but it is missing, I think, a couple, which would have made it even better. What I want to do is chain some of these together to make one longer animation. So I've got this. This is the looping weight on the left foot animation. We've got center to left, center to right, left to center, and right to center. So there's no looping on with the weight on the right foot, which would have made this perfect. But anyway, I'm going to start by loading this one. I'm just going to zero out the figure again on that frame. See, loaded animations. First frame of these animations is a T-pose, which I don't really need. So this is where the animation starts. Scrubbing back is so slow in Daz. I don't know how anyone creates animations in DazToHue. It must be such a painful process. But anyway, I'm going to add a blank frame to the end of that. I'm going to go to that frame. Now I want to go from left to center, which is this one. Now, because this first frame of that animation is also a T-pose, I actually want to delete that. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. I recommend you have keymate. If you don't have keymate, you should get it. It makes some keyframing operations in Daz slightly more bearable. I'm going to delete that frame, and I'm going to select all the frames after it, bump them up one. So now it should transition seamlessly between those two animations. So move it back into the center pose. I'm going to add another frame to the end, and this one will be center to right, which is this one. We are going to repeat the same process of deleting that keyframe, dragging the rest up. So we now have the weight shifting to the right foot. Do it again, another keyframe. This will be right to center. This one. Let's zoom in, something like 360. Again, delete that frame. So we have the weight shifting back to the center. And then one last time to get us back to the weight on the left foot animation. So another keyframe. This will be center to left. This one. Alright, so now I have an animation that should loop with the weight shifting from basically left to right foot. We can get rid of Let's see, we're on frame 506, so we can have total frames 507. Should work. Alright, we'll call that for our animation, our idle animation that we're going to use in our character customizer. So I'm going to export that as an animation. We don't need subdivisions because we just want the animation track. So let's export that out. All right. I'll save that just in case I've messed something up. All right, so we're going to go back to Houdini. Open our project. Now that animation obviously is for an 8.1 figure. We have a Genesis 9 figure, so we need to retarget it. We can do that either in Unreal Engine or Houdini. I prefer to do it in Houdini, so I'm going to drop down a Daz retargeting node. Preview that. I'm going to point it to our skeleton by dragging the skeleton node, dropping it into this import from field. Then you select, oh shit, I forgot something, which is I need to copy that animation over. So I will make a folder called animations. This file here will be our idle loop animation. Don't need that. Alright, so now on our retargeting node, select the FBX file. We're going to preview it. It's going to look weird, broken by default. What I'm going to do, I can't use direct transfer method because the base figure types don't match. I'm going to use the IK solver method. The source skeleton is Genesis 8.1, load default maps. Now we have something that looks better. We'll need a little bit of fine tuning because of the different skeleton sizes between Genesis 8.1 and Genesis 9. So we overlook the feeder actually floating off the ground plane for a start. So to fix that, I'm going to allow editing of this animation node and dive into it. Dive into where the retargeting or the mapping between the source and target skeletons is happening. Go to this tweak offset node. There's a few ways you can do this. I'm going to, under source geometry, I'm going to find, I think it was the pelvis. Might have been the hip. We'll try the pelvis. And I should just be able to bring that down. So that the feet are more or less on the ground plane. That looks pretty good. Now, unfortunately, the center animation of that set, for some reason, is just slightly higher off the ground than the left and right animations. Looks like they're stepping up. It would be possible to try and improve that by animating some of these offset values, but I don't think I'll bother. I don't think it's noticeable enough. So we'll come out of there. So this will be our idle animation on our Genesis 9 prototype skeleton. Actually, it looks like the fingers come very close to clipping. I don't know if they actually do. Looks like they don't. If they do, we have that arm offset pose we can use. We could fix it up here using the same method of tweaking the source pose, but anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. So now we have everything ready for this part in Houdini. We just need to export everything out. We've already set our export directory. You want to export our retargeted animations. I'm going to drag our retargeting node onto import from. Under pose assets, we are going to want to export the full body morph pose asset animation. I'm also going to export pose asset names. Actually, we also have the physics. We also want the physics pose asset animation because we have physics morphs, which means we will want pose driver code. And I'm also going to export skeleton curves, which is a new addition to DTH 1.6, which, depending on when I release this video, you might not have that yet, but it is coming. I added that to get around some bugs that were introduced in Unreal Engine 5.3 and 5.4. I did log a bug report with Epic, and 0 fucks were given, so I don't know if they're going to fix that or not. We probably won't need that actually for this workflow, but there are some cases where you will need that. Anyway, I think that's everything set, so I'm going to start this exporting. I'm probably going to cut the video while this is exporting and come back, so I might just go and grab a drink. Once this is exported, we will move into the Unreal Engine phase. I'm just going to hit export, and I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so I'm back and it has finished exporting, but when I was out grabbing a drink, I remembered that we exported some reference skeletons for some of our full body morphs out of Daz, and I forgot to add them to the pose asset node, so unfortunately I'll have to re-export. But before I do that, let's add those reference skeletons. So we had one for the base feminine and base masculine full body morphs. So if we start with the base feminine, let's view the morph deltas. So for that one, I'm going to browse to our base feminine reference. And then for masculine, select our base masculine skeleton. And the other one was the short one. You can see, yeah, without the reference skeleton, the morph is having to do a lot more to bring the vertices down to where they need to be. So that will be a problem without the reference skeleton, so let's add that. You can see with it, it's having to do a lot less work to bring the vertices to where they should be. Alright, save that. Unfortunately, I'll say I will have to re-export, so we'll cut the video again, and this time, once it's finished, we'll jump into Unreal Engine.